Welcome, everyone, to Press Coverage, part of Going for Two Live and part of the Going for Two network of podcasts and live streams. I'm your host, Kyle Senra, and on today's episode, our guest is JD from the Goat District. So, JD, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Really appreciate it. Nice to hang with you on what we have up here as a nice long weekend. So it's nice to have the day off today. Got to enjoy some nice sun. Hope you did too, and hang out and chat a bit fantasy and not so fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for anyone north of the border, this caps off a long weekend. But for anyone, I guess, in the States, it's just a normal day. But hopefully, again, we're here every Monday, so nothing unusual, strange there. I'm this Monday. Next Monday will be Gladys again with the 2-point conversion. We'll just be alternating those every week throughout the off season here. But part of full press coverage is getting to know people. And so JD, I think one thing that all of us Canadians have kind of discovered over the last year is how big the fantasy community is in Canada.
Yeah, totally, man. Who would have thought, eh?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure the fantasy hockey community is pretty big up here too. But the fantasy football community, as we see it, just reaches ocean to ocean, across the whole country. And it, Canada is such a large country in terms of its area of coverage, but makes us feel a little closer just podcasting together and being in all these leagues together.
100%. And, I said, who would have thought, just because honestly, a bit over a year ago, me and Time, especially through COVID, are distant from each other. But I did not know there was this many people. I knew a couple Canadian guys that were that I knew were north of the border that were into fantasy, and whether on podcasts or writing articles or just out there in Twitter land interacting. But as soon as I kind of bumped into Trav and Will and Ty and the True North guys, it's like this whole new dimension opened up here north of the border, which is awesome. It's nice to see because I'm isolated in the sense that I don't have buddies that are doing fantasy football that I grew up with and all that. I was kind of like the lone wolf when it came to that. So whether it was fantasy sports or football specifically. So it's nice to know, A, that there are a lot of fantasy fans up here north of the border, and B, now we're like one big happy family. Like I feel like I know a lot of these guys. I feel like I've known them for way longer than I have. Like Will is just down the street. We're not far from each other. We've met up a couple times, and Trav and the guys, and yourself and I interact out there in the Twitter land. So it's nice, man. It's nice to see that there's a nice big Canadian fantasy football family up here.
Yeah, and I get these big leagues. Last year I was in the Canada Cup. This, and something that happened last year was the Canadian National Best Ball League title, and it kind of got us to talk about sports. I mean, again, usually hockey is the thing that unites all Canadians, and they were talking as maybe the theme this year: 6 divisions, original 6 NHL teams, and that got the chat talk. I want to be in this, and I think so. Made the exactly right. Most of the leagues probably going to want to be Leafs and Habs in divisions, so we'll see how people. I'm a Red Wings fan personally, so I feel like I'll be able to get in if I do get in the league, get in my division I want to. But yeah, it'll be definitely interesting. But sports in Canada, I mean, hockey is a big part of it. But what do sports in Canada mean for you, JD?
Like every Canadian kid, I grew up on skates before I could even walk. Played hockey my entire life. Pretty much, I would say up until university is kind of where, you played men's leagues and all that kind of stuff. But actually organized, serious competitive hockey was, kind of Div 1 in university. Played some AAA hockey growing up, did the tournaments, the whole deal. But played a bit of baseball a couple seasons. Wasn't the biggest fan of playing the sport. Was more involved in soccer. Played lacrosse for a few years. So my family, like my parents, are big into sports. It was always something they encouraged. So I just wanted to try everything. Hockey was, again, growing up playing the sport. Hockey was my main love. Now it's completely flipped. And, like I think a lot of us, football is kind of the main sport that I follow. But you know how big football is here. It's not something that you grow up, or I don't know what it is like now. I'm ancient, so early 40s. So I don't know if football is more present in schools now or in high school. Even we didn't even have a football team in high school. So I went to a little French high school, up here in Ontario. So we barely had a hockey team. Yeah.
We had a ball hockey team. We didn't even have an ice hockey
There
team.
you go. We didn't even
small.
Have
Yeah, French schools. Yeah, not not always the most students in order to participate in the biggest
that's
events.
the thing, right? They're in Anglophone usually, environments. So the population is a lot smaller. Like we were, I don't even know, man. I don't even know now, but I know we were like a fraction of the English high schools around us. When you're looking at how big we were, so we could barely put together a hockey school, and we'd go to tournaments and just get wiped, by these teams that were organized and practicing. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for sports up here. Now I've got a 4-year-old, so she's trying everything. She's tried everything, and I built her a rink this winter in the back so she could start playing hockey a bit. She enjoyed that.
But yeah, quickly things go from watching sports to wanting to participate. And for you, that was playing hockey. But I'm sure at a certain point, watching football, eventually wanting to participate. How do we get involved? And it's we discovered this thing called fantasy football. So how did that jump happen for you?
It's a good way to put it, and that was a great transition, Kyle. As someone who hosts, that was awesome, and very profesh. I gotta point that out. Yeah. I mean, like you said, we grow up in kind of this hockey world. So hockey pools is kind of my first introduction to fantasy sports. And you play, whether it's at school or you play with your friends, or whether it's guys that you work with. Office pools, I guess they're called, up here are kind of those hockey pools. But like everything I do, whether it's poker or fantasy football, or it's, I take it, if I'm really into it and I really like something, I obsess over it, so my buddies, not so much when it came to fantasy, just like poker, so I'm kind of on my own. And you end up on sites like Yahoo. Back in the day, they had like free fantasy sports. And hockey was one of the only places where you could actually play fantasy hockey was on Yahoo. Then I switched over to baseball, was a bit into baseball because sports cards and that kind of thing. And, you're kind of into it. And then you're like, oh, I'll try, I did all right. I'll try football. And then I just got super hooked, like, because it gets you to start paying more attention to what's going on the field. And you're, as much as, again, our exposure to football back when I was a kid was very limited, unless the big teams were playing on, prime time. Otherwise, it was very limited. There wasn't NFL Network and all that kind of stuff. Weren't any websites, that you could go and get news on and all that. So, but once you start getting into fantasy, like we are now, you kind of obsess over every aspect of it. So you want to learn more. You start watching the games, and that's where it started picking up for me with, getting into the sport. Like you said, my way of getting involved in football without actually playing the sport.
Yeah, so then again, eventually we're playing these leagues, and like you, I also started with fantasy hockey. So it seems like it's the natural growth progression in this country.
That's the gateway. The gateway drug is the hockey pool.
I guess then and it goes redraft to then Dynasty. So how did you go from just playing to then creating content? And tell us about your journey into now what you call the GOAT District.
Yeah, I guess part of to end my last answer, I guess, would be I was playing on kind of those free sites, and then you get into obviously, again, I've got no buddies that are playing fantasy at this point, football. So I'm looking online for anything that I can find, where you want to test your skills, right? So there was sites like Master Fantasy, and I don't know, there's a bunch of like, not necessarily FFPC type sites. I hadn't come to the FFPC yet, but started playing in those type of leagues. When I did come across the FFPC, that's, when I started really getting more into it. You start looking up for, listening to podcasts, looking up websites, reading the articles. You want, just like we do now, you want every edge you can. You're taking information, but back then, again, very limited with what you have compared to what is available now, whether it's websites, podcasts. The information is flowing in every direction now. So get on the FFPC, start playing for bigger money, having success, figuring strategies out, theories out, that kind of thing. And again, like, look, I always, we had guys from DTC on, Izzy and JP. And I told them, like, one of the reasons I started the GOAT District, especially the podcast, was I'd listen to DTC, I'd listen to DLF. And then it was like, there wasn't much else there for Dynasty. It was, you had your mainstream sports brands that were doing redraft, whether it was ESPN, Roto, Mr. Roto, and CBS, the kind of the mainstream redraft sites. But Dynasty was really there wasn't that much there. So it just became like, I just started being more active on Twitter, started interacting, built some leagues, started building some leagues of my own. I thought, because again, you're kind of, I don't know anyone in this world yet. When I first come on Twitter, and even though I'm playing on the FFPC, I'm still limited to what I'm seeing on a screen. I haven't really interacted on Twitter yet. So when I got on Twitter, it was really just about reaching out to a lot of these guys, picking their brains, asking them questions. Trade questions was always something I'd like to reach out. There's guys like Dave Richard that I'd reach out to. Oh, the fireworks are starting. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Long weekend, right? Every night this weekend there've been the fireworks.
Sounds like shotguns, yeah. So yeah, just the whole community online. You know how it is, man. People in fantasy land on Twitter, I say, like, it's like most people are there with open arms. Like, they're willing to help. They're willing to, answer questions. They're willing to come on your show. With the people we've had on GOAT District, sometimes just blows me away, because it's, you reach out, you ask them, and they agree to come on. You're like, that's amazing, So yeah, you kind of just, it was one of these things where it organically just happened. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. My teams were just GOAT District FC. That's just what my teams always were. GOAT District was something I had put together a while ago, not really thinking much of it. I was using it as my teams. Next thing you know, I've got a logo. I've got some leagues. Nate, my buddy Nate Pilmer, at Nathan_Pilmer from the GOAT Leagues. He's been on the show a few times. I mean, you want to talk trades? This guy is the most obsessed with Dynasty trades. He's in any league you're in. He's the only guy in the DMs every day. Guys, trades, anyone trading, he'll let you know who's available, what league, what he's looking for. So he was willing to start this podcast with me and try it out. We had no idea what we were doing. We were, he's in Cali, I'm in Toronto. We have no equipment, nothing. So we just started, fooling around, trying to put this thing together. It took us, I would say, a good couple of years before we were set up logistically. Because again, I was limited with the amount of people that I was interacting with at that time. So, but once you start dealing with people, they start helping you out, start putting, pieces together. And here we are. We've got, we're almost at 200 shows or something like that, something crazy like that.
Yeah. Congrats. Definitely come a long way for sure. And it's funny, you were talking about, so few Canadians on Twitter. When I first was getting on Twitter and seeing, kept seeing you and, the Canadian flag in your profile. So, okay, at least I know I'm not the only one. There is someone else here from Canada. But yeah, so how did, I know Nate's no longer on the show necessarily as a co-host anymore, still occasionally returns, but then you got Dan, yes, who's almost Canadian, again, up in Minnesota, close enough. So how did you and Dan first connect?
Yeah, Dan's the man. Like, I love working with Dan. I mean, we've become really good friends. We actually met, we started interacting on Twitter because of the FFPC. We would interact on Twitter because of the FFPC, like before the live event. But once I had decided I was going down for a live event, Dan really kind of helped me on Twitter with like just information. I was asking just randomly questions about the live events. He was always answering. So we started DMing. we started talking. I don't remember. I think we didn't draft together, but we ran into each other down there. We hung out a little bit, talked a bit. And then once when I got back, it just happened that Randy was kind of doing his thing with DWZ. Nathan had something coming up where he wasn't really able to do the show as much anymore. And Dan was coming on more and more often, and him and I were interacting more and more. And I just, it was one of those things that just asked him if he wanted to come on and kind of take that role. And he's been on ever since. And he's just a wealth of knowledge, man. He's a super nice guy, very experienced. He plays, in all levels, nosebleed levels. He's got me in all kinds of crazy leagues. We co-own a bunch of teams together now on the FFPC, but just awesome guy. He's even his crew online. They're all awesome. They're just a really nice bunch of guys, but super smart guys. And Dan brings, like I said, a wealth of knowledge. So it's good, man. He makes me look good.
And I guess we're all competing against each other. Right? We're all in leagues together, but the idea that we're still kind of in it together, helping each other out with the not the actual drafting itself. Although, I mean, you come on a podcast, people still talk drafts, but just as you said, especially with those live drafts, that's an extra complication. And sometimes if you're not used to it, that's an extra bit of stress. That how do you deal with that? And having good resources like Dan or other people in the industry is certainly great.
You mean when I go down to do the live draft, you mean?
Well, I mean, just in general, but it's a good example of like how that, especially if, for your first time, I'm sure that was, not really sure what to expect necessarily. I'm sure that was an extra stress. Yeah, I know I get stressed every time I have to cross the border.
Yeah, I know. Right? Well, you know what? So I've like I said, I was big into poker, like super into poker, like wanted to make a living playing poker. Went down in the World Series 3 times in Vegas. So I had that kind of experience where I had gone to Vegas for, big buy-in type of tournament scenario. I find there's a lot of parallels in poker and fantasy. So that part of it for me, I was pretty excited about. And it was kind of odd too. Like I didn't go down just for the FFPC. It happened that it was my 40th birthday. Yes, I'm old as fuck. I know. Can I swear on here? I don't even know. Is that bad or?
I think yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Get somebody to beep it out. But yeah, so we were going down for my birthday. I was going down with my wife, my parents, I think my daughter was like 9 months or 12 months or something like that. And we were going down for a few days and it kind of worked out perfectly. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do a live event. The one thing we were talking about this the other night, I don't remember if it was our show or someone else's show, but for some reason I did an auction draft when I went down, and I'm not a big auction guy. And I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea to spend, $800 US on something that I don't do very often when I do the other thing, pretty well. But anyways, I decided to go down and do a live auction. I got my ass kicked. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I was talking about this the other day too. There was like a father-son team that were sitting beside me, and they were just crushing it. Like you could tell they had done like a bunch of these, So I always, this is what I said about like, if you're deciding to go do something like that, you have to experience it. Like if you're into fantasy football, the FFPC put together an amazing program. You go down there, they have the Thursday night, they have a big event with the football game on, and then the live events start on the Friday. They go through the weekend. But I always say, like, if you're going to go down and do something and experience something for the first time, you want to get the most out of it. So do something that you already are familiar with the actual, like, drafting aspect of it. I think you'll get more out of it. You'll have more fun. Because then, like you said, you go down, it's all new. Now you're adding an extra stress. You're doing something you're not as familiar with. So that would be my advice for that. But sorry, I don't know if I even answered your question there, Kyle.
I think you did. I guess I didn't even really ask a question. I think we were more just talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, because there is one question about asking for advice to anyone. I think that was could be geared towards content creation, or in this case, fantasy football. So, is there anything you want to say in terms of advice for anyone who's maybe inspired to create a podcast?
Yeah, I do think. I think it's one of these things, like you always see memes and people joke about, everybody's got a podcast now, or everybody's got, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's room for there's a lot of people out there. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people playing fantasy, and it's growing. So I think don't take that as a deterrent. I would say, if you want to do something, whether it's a podcast, if you want to write articles, or just go for it, man. Do it. Find your niche. Stick to like the aspects of it that you love, that you're good at, that find your strengths, and highlight that, and be passionate about it, and find people that are like-minded, that are willing to help you with it, and I think that's part of it. Like, you're talking about finding people that you can depend on for resources or for input, or that's important. Like anything in your life, you want to be surrounded with good people. Fantasy is like that as well. My game has elevated because I'm in DMs and I'm in conversations with guys like Dan and Theo and Andrew and guys like Noah Riddell, like these, people who have just done awesome things, and you get to talk, you pick their brains, don't be afraid to ask people, for input on stuff, whether it's a trade, whether it's a podcast you're doing, whether it's the name of the podcast or whatever it is, and don't hesitate to ask for help. Like, I think that I probably would have gotten farther quicker in the beginning, especially. Maybe it's just because I didn't know who to ask or whatever, but especially like the technical part of podcasting, I don't know yourself, like what your setup is and all that, but man, it took me a while to get that part set up. So anything like that, just reach out, man. Ask people. I think that's one thing. I think you'll get, like anything in life, you'll get there quicker if you ask people to help you out.
That's true, and we've already talked about the fantasy community is generally very giving, and ask anything on Twitter, even if you're not directly tagging people, you usually get responses. Yes. People, and again, we've all accumulated this knowledge, whether it's the fantasy football knowledge or now it's the how-to on these podcasts. We've all, through trial and error or through other means, have accumulated all this knowledge, and we all just want to share it. That's what Twitter is all about, and social media in general, sharing.
Totally. It's all trial and error, right? And if I've tried something like 500 times and I could save you the time, I will save you the time, Yeah,
I think I can't remember if it was you. One of the Goat District episodes was maybe one of the half milli billy or the quarter milli billy. So it said, we're doing all these drafts. Take advantage of the mistakes we've made in these drafts and look at that so you don't have to make them.
That's totally it. That's exactly it, right? And that's you look at sites like RotoViz. They have amazing articles on. I'm not a data guy, man. I'm not like Dan can pull data from websites, and I have no idea how to do any of that. I'll go on RotoViz and read, Sean Siegel's article on, why I need to do zero RB or whatever it is. Like it's the information is available. Use it.
So we've talked about hockey, we've talked about poker, obviously fantasy football is there. Are there any other hobbies that you have that you'd like to discuss, JD?
When I saw your question there, I kind of laughed right away because two of my closest friends recently in the last few days both said the same thing to me. They're like, you're like, because right now I'm huge into crypto, so I'm trying to learn how to read graphs. And when I get into something, I get pretty deep. So they laugh because every time they talk to me, I'm into something totally different, but I'm like, not just like, dabbling, like I get really into it. So, I'd say right now, crypto is probably, which I think a lot of people are into, but again, I'm kind of going that extra mile. I really want to, reading graphs is something I've always wanted to do. And I'm finding that with crypto, for some reason, it's allowing me to learn that. And I don't know if it's just, maybe crypto similar to fantasy, people are willing to share the information a little more, share it a little differently. Stock market wise, man, I could not get those graphs, but no, man, I'm having fun with cryptos, bit of NFT action. Like I like poker was huge part of my life. With a 4-year-old, married, all that, career, I barely have time to do this anymore. Like it's, time is put poker like way on the back burner. But it's one of those things where I played for long enough for seriously. So it's I don't mind that. I kind of got that out of my system. But I'd say, yeah, other than like fantasy, sports, family, hanging out with my daughter, that kind of thing, my wife, I'd say crypto right now is probably the flavor of the month. How about you, man? What are you into outside of fantasy?
Well, yeah, I will just today,
You're a
wife and I
music guy,
playing some.
aren't you? If I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I do play some music as well, but I know lately my wife and I have been playing a lot of chess. So
Oh,
just
nice.
again, yeah, just we
Gambit.
got.
You watch the Queen's Gambit and you guys get into it or what?
I mean, I've always loved playing chess even before that, but yeah, it's definitely watching that show kind of definitely kicked the interest to play consistently, a couple times a week and just try to improve the both of us. So it was a nice weekend this weekend, nice long weekend, and we got a new outdoor set, so just took advantage
Oh,
of
nice.
the good weather. So yeah, I would say chess is a. I play a lot of Magic: The Gathering as well.
Okay.
Maybe last year it's been weird. I haven't played as much as I wanted, but yeah, that's definitely a fun time as well.
It's funny. You just reminded me with your chess with the Queen's Gambit. My wife and I got her to watch the F1 show on Netflix. I think there's like 3 seasons or whatever. So now every weekend we watch the F1 races, which is awesome because she wasn't into it before, and now she'll actually put up with it.
Wow. Yeah, you see, that's something I still haven't quite got interested in is the racing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, it's good, man. Today they had or this weekend was Monaco. It's pretty sweet.
oh, awesome! Yeah, what a weekend! Hey, around the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So okay, I guess so we've already maybe answered a few of this, or at least a few things. But one more thing, if there is, that the fantasy community doesn't know about you, JD, what are you willing to share?
Oh man, I totally forgot about that question. Man, I don't even know. I have no idea. Oh
Okay.
man. All
I
right.
guess even JD doesn't know. So if he
Yeah,
just
let me think about that one. I don't trying to think of like crazy jobs that I've had or yeah. Oh, okay. I got one. Well, I don't know if this is like this is what you mean or not, but I worked I worked security for concerts for this company for about 3 years, like in university around Toronto and GTA and stuff. And I mean, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but man, I saw some pretty awesome, like some amazing concerts. Work in the pit for like Metallica, Pearl Jam. Yeah, I got stories for days. Backstage. Yeah, and it was one of those things where you name it, I worked it. Like Britney Spears, in sync, like for all over the place. But it was yeah, that was a pretty cool job. Was that again? I don't know if that answers your question. It's the only thing I can think of right now.
I didn't know that, so I'm guessing unless someone else in the community knew that, that definitely does count. So
All right.
chime in if you knew that, then he has to come with something new. But well, now make me ask a question. Was there ever a riot when you worked at one?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, actually, so Beastie
One
Boys.
time in Bob Cajun, maybe.
No, no, no. A hip. I never worked a hip concert just because
Oh,
I would go to. I've seen the hip live like 16, 17 times. Yeah, I've seen the hips way like a lot of times, but I never worked the concerts. The one where there was actually Beastie Boys Amphitheater, and that concert, A Tribe Called Quest, literally broke up that day, and they were supposed to play at that concert. Yeah, that night was crazy. There were fires being lit all over the place. This is one of my first shows too that I'm working. Uh, this guy was in the back of the park, and he was trying to get into the beer tents. They were shut down, so they send me and this other guy to go see this guy, and he's got his pants down, and he's like trying to swing at me, and I'm trying to like get him to like go towards because the cops were pulling in like with their wagon or whatever, and he's trying to piss on me. So I was like, what am I getting into here? It's just anyway. He got thrown into the wagon, but no, that night was just because I don't know if you've been to amphitheater, but they have those huge towers. So you'd have to go up there with the walkie-talkie or whatever, and you're like telling all your other guys where to go to put the fires out because there was fires going up everywhere. They were just basically rioting at that point.
oh wow, yeah. I went. Incubus was playing when I went a couple years ago. Raining, so even if there was a fire, that wouldn't have been that much of an issue. Yes, yeah, but
Oh, you know
yeah.
what? I'm saying amphitheater. It's the one in Barrie. What's Molson Park back in the day?
Oh,
Molson
okay.
Park. Sorry, man. I'm thinking is most. I don't even know if that's even still there. Molson Park, is it?
I don't. I've never been to a concert in Barrie, so
No.
that's out
Okay.
of my expertise.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been to the Molson or the
Amphitheater.
amphitheater in
Yeah.
Toronto, but yeah.
Yeah. Amphitheater is nice. I've seen tons of. I think the last one may have been either the Black Keys or with the wife, probably John Mayer. She's a big John Mayer, so we pretty much go anytime he comes.
Hey, I can dig John Mayer, really
Yeah,
good guitarist.
hey, he's amazing on guitar. I'll give him that.
So I'm guessing it probably won't be John Mayer the answer to this one, but if you could interview one person in real life, and this is all time, future, past, present, and say in context of on a podcast or not, if you could interview anybody, who would that be, JD?
Uh, Probably not like to gear this to the to the Canadian to my Canadian host here, but I'd have to say Gord Downie, man. I was a huge Gord Downie fan growing up. Yeah, almost obsessively. like I said, seen them live so many times, paid way too much to get front row, that kind of thing, a couple times. But just again, never necessarily met him in the sense that we're interacting, but just the guy just seems uber smart, and yeah, I'd love to just sit, have a beer, talk to Gord.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all like that, especially up here in Canada. But yeah, it's funny because you said you've seen them, I don't know, a dozen times, if not more. Probably listened to albums countless times, and you still want to hear more from Gord Downie. That's how much he would have had to share, had to share. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I had a feeling that might be the answer, but asked it anyway. And now everyone knows. Big revelation there. Well, but transition to the next question. What is one revelation that you've had that you wish you had gotten earlier in your life?
Oh, I think I should put something down for that one. What did I put? Oh, okay. That one's actually pretty easy. I would say meditation and yoga. Like those are two things I wish I had discovered in my life way earlier. And I think like yoga, now being in my 40s, I don't know how old you are, Kyle. You seem like you're way younger than I am. So I'm not even gonna bring you into this conversation. But let's just say things hurt a lot more when you're over 40. Whether that's first thing in the morning or because you did some kind of exercise or lifting or whatever. Like I'm a pretty active guy, but I wish I had done yoga like from when I was young, as opposed to, when you go through that phase when you're, in high school and you're lifting and you want to be big and buff. Like I wish I had just done yoga the entire time. My body would be so thankful right now, because you're so stiff. As you get older, you're less flexible and limber. And yoga for me, huge benefits. Like one of those things where if I go few days without doing it, my body starts feeling it. I have neck and upper back issues. So, and then I feel it in my shoulders. So yoga is huge for me there. And meditation, that's something that I've brought in, I would say maybe 3 years ago ish, handful of years ago. Try to do at least, 10, 15 minutes a day, if not a bit longer. And it's just a great way to start the day and kind of keep you level headed.
I kind of combine the two. I like to do a lot of stretching early in the morning before.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
what I do now.
I after a shower, I find it helps way to help dry, but also get your muscles activated. And then before bed, I kind of like combine, in this sense, you're trying to focus. Sometimes I listen to podcasts, maybe the Goat District, while doing it, and
really
so kind of
okay.
Yeah, so I know sometimes it's I want to listen to a ton of podcasts, so I do it at any moment I can.
I have earbuds in my ear, like when I'm doing stuff around, like all the time. It's like embarrassing almost. But the reason I reacted there is because I was joking to my wife, and I said, because I don't have time to really do like session of meditation, session of yoga, working, like whatever it is whatever it is that you want to do. So I started combining I would say a couple of months ago now, my yoga and my meditation. So I'll get into my meditative state. And then when I'm like relaxed and comfortable, I'll start just doing stretches like while I'm still doing the breathing and everything. And I find it's amazing. Like I come out of it that's why when you said that, I was like, that is awesome.
There you go. And there's a secret. We're peeling back. Not just fantasy advice, folks. Not feeling so sore with your body advice.
Yeah, there you go.
But I guess, yeah, let's talk more fantasy now. And then
now that we bored everyone with meditation and yoga, let's get into fantasy.
This little seance here. So give us your spiel, JD, about what do you think about zero RB?
Yeah. I saw this question on here. I thought it was interesting because I play all kinds of formats with fantasy, and I think they're all different. As much as I think they help each other, and a lot of them are similar. Like I'm big with, if you're playing Dynasty, you should be playing best ball. I think any kind of fantasy, you should be playing best ball, to be honest. I said the other day, it's like playing golf and never going to the driving range. Like to me, it's a no-brainer. It's helping you in so many ways. And one of the ways is your roster construction. So I'm not a big I'm a zero RB guy or I'm a late QB guy, or I don't really label myself really. I have certain guidelines when I'm building rosters. And maybe I should ask you before I get into this long rant, was this question for a specific format? Or was this just a general comment, or general approach as your RB?
Yeah, I think it's more the philosophy of zero RB. What do you think about when those words are said?
Yeah, I do. Again, I talked about RotoViz. I love RotoViz, especially their best ball content, because they do all the research for me. It's why not? Why not for especially, this is not a plug. They're not a sponsor or anything. But if you're playing best ball, again, no brainer. The tools that they have, but the articles are awesome because they're basically, and even the tools, you're looking at things like heat maps. So in the different rounds, which positions are, more profitable to draft versus other ones, stack, win rates, which stacks are profitable, which aren't. So when you're in best ball, was it yesterday or today, Sean Siegel put a zero RB article out specifically on best ball saying, if you don't have or if you have, this many RBs by this round, or if you haven't drafted an RB by, round 6 or 7, but you have your early tight ends. And so they kind of give you really good guidelines, and they'll tell you, zero RB is very, very profitable, when you're looking at best ball. Now, when you're looking at Dynasty and redraft, let's face it, there's a lot more give. You can have the world's worst draft, and you can make it up, whether it's trades, waiver wire. There's ways, there's forgiveness in there. But in best ball, there's no forgiveness. That team's got to take you to the end, and you have to finish first. That's basically it. So I think that the more you draft, zero RB is nice. I think if I have to put a label on it, I what's the I don't know, somebody coined it something pretty good, but it's like a zero RB light. I like to get my one. Sorry,
I've heard modified zero RB.
Modified, I think some people call it that. Modified zero RB. So that's actually I'm going to throw this in with my meditation, and is fasting. Fasting is changed my life. So intermittent fasting. And I don't know why that just reminded me of that, but it
was a revelation you wish you'd got earlier in the episode.
Yeah. No, because what did you call the zero RB? Modified? Yeah, because I always call my fasting, I call it modified intermittent fasting. That's why that reminded me of that. But no, it's more modified in the sense that I like to get my one anchor. I call it my one, stud RB. And then, because most formats, you're starting 2 RBs. So if I can get my one and then get my second one, especially in best ball, you can load up later in the drafts, and then have your Edmonds, your Jones, your Aaron Jones, those type of guys to fill in that RB2 on a weekly basis, depending on, injuries and all that kind of thing. So I prefer doing it that way, is having my one anchor In tight end premium, I mean, again, you look at the stats, it's very profitable to get your tight ends early. So that's one strategy I try to implement. But again, I'm not forcing any of this. I just kind of let the drafts come to me. That's why I said, like, I'm not a big label guy. I don't go in with a certain intention. I'm usually just going with the flow. Like, whatever's falling to me. I have an idea of how I like to build my rosters. But even though I do have my way that I think is the profitable way, I'm always adjusting it. I'm always tweaking it, and I'm always trying different things. So again, I think that zero RB, because of going back macro like philosophy, if you look at just the way the league is now with running backs and with positions, you have role players, like you've got your pass catcher RB, you've got your third, your first 2 down RBs, you've got your goal line RB. So because of that, I think it's easier now and it's more logical to go with kind of that zero RB approach. And then again, if, I talked about those heat maps, Sean Siegel talks about it in that article. People say, yeah, wide receiver is super deep, right? It's super deep. So I can wait. But again, if you look at the heat maps and the win rates, those top receivers are very valuable. And I think when you look at the running backs that are taken, and again, I'm you want the actual numbers here, go check out those RotoViz articles. But if you look at those RBs in those earlier rounds, Dan, my co-host, and again, I told you guys we co-own teams. We were in a draft, and he threw a stat at me with regards to running backs. And I forget what it is now. This is why I bring him on usually with me, so he can kind of fill in the blanks. But he gave me a number with regards to how many RBs, in the first whatever rounds actually helped you win, last year. And it wasn't very high. Or no, sorry, I think it was amount of points of their points that were used through the season for your best ball team, because obviously in best ball it's your best starting lineup, right? So it was the amount of times that those running backs in the top rounds were actually used for your weekly lineup score, and I was blown away by how small that number was. And it goes back to say, it's kind of like tight end, where you're not going to get the Logan Thomases and what's buddy from Green Bay, Tunyon, like. You're not going to hit on those guys if you're always taking just Kittle, Kelsey, and Waller. You know what I mean? So it's the same with running back. Like, I had James Robinson for 4 different dynasty leagues last year. You're not hitting on those guys, unless you're taking them later and you're giving yourself the opportunity to hit on them. So some positions it's more profitable than others, and RB is one of them. So again, my modified version, I like to have whether it's Kamara, Barkley, CMC, Jonathan Taylor, you name it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to come back and take an RB in round 2. It just means, that's one way I like to do it. I don't know. Do you have like a preferred way that you build rosters, or what are your thoughts on zero RB?
Yeah, I think a preferred way, I definitely prefer to have the robust RB, I guess you'd say, the deep RB. I mean, that always makes it
like in all formats.
But that's the thing. I think the differentiation based on formats, but also within the same format of different scoring settings as well. I think what you were, something you're kind of trying to echo almost. You're not going to go into a draft saying this is going to be my zero RB draft. If you end up with a draft that's like a textbook version of it, it's because that's how the draft fell to you. You just naturally pick those values at those spots.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're adjusting, right? It's especially best ball. Like if you're going to take Kittle or Kelsey in the first couple rounds in a tight end premium best ball, like you're probably not going to be taking 2 or 3 other tight ends in the next, 10 rounds. So you're adjusting your roster accordingly, right? So, it is one of the strategies that I'm open to using, but it's not, like you said, I'm not going in there saying, yeah, I'm team zero RB.
I think in general, even if you have a good strategy, it's not to say, don't force yourself into something if the draft is really not falling in that direction. You lose some value by continuing to go a certain direction. If everyone else is going that same way, you're getting maybe the 10th best lineup built in that way. But if you go totally different, maybe it doesn't work out, but you've got the one unique lineup build for your league that if it hits, it hits, and no one else is close to you.
Exactly. And then like even Dynasty, like you're saying team robust RB. I mean, you need our robust RB teams to win in Dynasty, but it doesn't necessarily mean you drafted them that way, you know? I always say, like, I have my guidelines. I like to be top heavy and get as many studs as I can at receiver. Like, I rather have 4 really good receivers as opposed to like, one really good one and 3 pretty good ones and, whatever. I really like being trim and fit at my receiver core. And then I do have usually a deep running back bench and this is all, my ideal scenario here. If you're in my leagues and that's not how my roster look, but I'm just saying, like, as much as I'll do a 0 RB, I've got dynasty teams that are robust RB, but again, it's not necessarily, it's you build them through the rookie drafts or trading. That's the beauty of dynasty is you've got the trading aspect, right? Hashtag always be trading.
Yeah, let's say it. You got it on cue, as if you've said it a million times before. So, okay, now you've talked about a few different league formats. So again, transition, a good host as well yourself, JD. Transition nicely into this question. What is your preferred league format?
Yeah, I got to be honest, I don't have one. I always look at it this way, and I've been in leagues where it's like you're in the DM. When you're in a league and they haven't started yet, the guy just put the league together, and then he starts asking questions. So do you guys want to do it tight end preem, or do you want to do this? And some people get super, like, they're not budging. You know what I mean? Like this league has to be whatever, super flex or tight end. I like a variety with my leagues. I have, like, I run 3 of the GOAT leagues. My Nate, he's just impatient, right? So if I don't start a new league, he'll just start one. So we have like 2 satellite GOAT leagues, I guess you could call them, like that he started. But they're all different. Like, every one of them is different. I don't know about you, but I don't want to do the same format. Like, the FFPC, yeah, it's tight end premium, but they got super flex. They got, there's it has its charm, the FFPC, and that's why I like it. It complements my MFL world, because my MFL leagues are all super deep. You're playing with your buddies or whatever. Whereas FFPC is a little shallower. It's tight end preem. There's, it's 2-2-2, so 2 running back, 2 receivers, and then 2 flex. So I like variety. I don't have a preferred format. I'm not a snob where I'm like, oh, I'm only going to play in a super flex league, or if the league is enticing and the people in the league are enticing and I want to play with them. For me, I think that's that. And I see you kind of shaking your head. I think you'll agree. Like, for me, it's the people that are in the league. That's a big deal, unless it's FFPC and my whole goal is just money, but like, other than that, leagues that I'm joining because people are asking me to join, it's because I like playing with those people and it's going to be active and friendly and the DMs are going to be good and all that kind of stuff, because that's what make the leagues at the end of the day.
Yeah.
For me anyways.
And I mean, that answer does make sense. Well, I mean, the second part of the answer, talk about how it being all the people, because we're not playing fantasy football against other computers. We're playing against other humans, so that the human aspect is fun. But the fact that you've talked about different formats already on this show without even being prompted, just naturally talking best ball, dynasty, redraft, it makes sense that you don't really have a preferred format, because it seems like you just naturally think of all of them at the same time.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Now, through all of them, is there a rule or a setting that you have to have in every league, or no, not even have to, but prefer to have in every league?
So again, I'm not like a stickler for anything. I did, the one thing I did kind of when I did see that question, I was thinking, one thing that bothers me, if you're gonna have a trade deadline, like, I'm not big on trade deadlines. We have them in the GOAT leagues where, and this is because it was kind of originally set up that way, and some people just prefer not to change it or whatever the reason, we still have it that way. But we just basically did until the Thursday before the playoffs. That's the trade deadline. After that, only teams that are not, in the playoffs can trade. If you're in the playoffs, you're not allowed to trade. which doesn't really make sense because we have a playoff for the teams that are not in the playoffs for the 113. So it kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense because then, it's okay for you to make a trade, in the 113 tourney, but it's not okay for the championship one. But I just don't like trade deadlines that are too early. That's my pet peeve. And, love the FFPC. Love everything about it. I don't remember exactly when it is, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I go to trade in my Dynasty. Like it's really frustrating in Dynasty when you can't trade at a crucial time of the season. So for me, if you're going to have a trade deadline, make it like right before the playoffs. Don't make it like 2 weeks before that or whatever. It's annoying.
Yeah, I've seen some week 10s before. And it's like, you make the trade deadline. There's still 3 weeks after that you're going before the playoffs. And yeah, I agree that,
what's the point? What's the point? Like the whole point of you being able to trade is, your star running back just got hurt or something, but you have 3 quarterbacks in your 1 QB or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have that option 2 weeks before the playoffs start, like, come on, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. Anything that encourages league participation, league activity, I think is a good thing.
Agreed.
So anything that discourages it is naturally a bad thing.
Totally, 100%.
All right, so I think I know the answer to some of these, at least one for sure, I'm pretty sure. But now your all-time fantasy quarterback 1, running back 1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1.
All right, so because you just said that, so is this like just only fantasy related, or is this like just my favorite players?
I'm thinking fantasy related, but honestly, you're the one who answers, so you can answer however you want. If you want to go with your favorite players, you can totally do that.
Yeah, I filled it out as for fantasy, and it's just kind of my personal reason, whatever that is. Each one has their reason, but I'm curious to know now that you said that one of them, or that you might know one of them. I'm really curious now.
Well, I know you're a Leafs fan. You're also a Colts fan, so I think that maybe.
Yes, you got Peyton right there. Right. Oh, this side.
Well, yeah.
Right there, yeah.
Picture perfect example.
And that's why I asked the question, because initially I had Peyton Manning in there, but he was one of those guys where I didn't own him in fantasy. It was rare that I owned him in fantasy for whatever reason. One thing I keep my fandom very separate from, like, I'm excited about JT. I love Jonathan Taylor. Anyone who listens knows that. And last year I was excited about Pittman, still am. And maybe that sways me a bit more because I'm a Colts fan, but I try to keep it like, I try to be about, about the numbers, I guess you could say. It's like in hockey, like I'll never bet either for or against the Leafs. It's just a rule I have, just because I just can't do it, and same with the Colts. I just try not to bet, to get them involved. So my QB1, I put Drew Brees. And the reason is, when I first decided to kind of go online and find myself, kind of a bigger buy-in type of, site, that kind of thing. The first quarterback I drafted in the Dynasty was Drew Brees, and he was awesome for me, man. Like 2011, 2012, 2013, he was, I think, if not the top 2 or 3 scoring QBs in those seasons. Yeah, he was awesome, man, back in the day. Now I was hearing someone say today, I forget what I was listening to. They're saying, like, if the Saints wanted to win the playoff game last year, they would have put Taysom Hill in instead of Brees, and it's like, he's been around a while, but yeah, back then Brees was the man. Peyton Hillis, remember him?
Yeah.
So I put him in because he helped me win a league. I think it was like 2010. I was trying to look up the year. I think it's 2010 where he had that that crazy season.
Season that won you the title and got him on Madden cover, probably.
It was. And then as soon as you saw him on the Madden cover, I just remember thinking to myself, that guy is never going to be relevant again. He never was relevant again, He was one of those guys. But that year was fun owning him because he was one of those guys. He was like the James Robinson of that year. You got him super cheap, and he just popped and came through. Receivers, I've got 3 of them. I know I always cheat on these. On my show, it's easy because I just say I'm the host. I make the decisions. So I'll do them really quick. Julio Jones on that Drew Brees. He's like the first rookie, I guess, that I drafted like in a bigger buy-in type of dynasty. So he's been my favorite receiver for a really long time. Diggs helped me win a lot of leagues this year, including one of my FFPC leagues, which I've been trying to win forever. So Diggs was a big part of 2 of those rosters, if not 3. And then ODB, Beckham, not a big fan of the person, but and again, I don't remember what year his rookie year is, but the FFPC, the football guys, I went into the final weekend in 5th place, playing for 250 grand. And a big reason was picking up ODB off waivers earlier in the season because someone, was impatient with him. And man, he was the best flex spot that I had like every week, that year. So I had to mention him. And tight end, I mean, I'm a big Kittle guy. I've got him on a lot of my FFPC teams and stuff. But Logan Thomas last year helped me with that 500 FFPC because Kittle was out, and I picked up Thomas in a trade. I think I sent my second and Mo Alley Cox for Logan Thomas. And I mean, he filled in very nicely, as you know.
Yeah, of course. So there. Okay. Yeah, I guess I was expecting Peyton, to be honest. Just
Were you?
because he's also had such good fantasy seasons that like it's one of those where it's viable, where you're not, you're saying you're not being a homer, because it very well could be true that he's won you the most leagues. But yeah, I guess it was Drew Brees.
I'll tell you this. So that team with ODB, when I went in into the last weekend of that tournament, and it was, I'm in 5th place. I'm thinking, this is US, man. This is like, that's like $750,000. Not joking. I went into that tournament, and my quarterback was Andrew Luck, and I'm a Colts fan. And they played Jacksonville that weekend, and he had the worst. I think he may have even gotten negative points. And I ended up finishing 22nd in that tournament because of Andrew Luck. And that's, went against my rule, drafted my quarterback from my team, and I paid for it. See?
So mention, it's Breeze the answer. Okay, yeah, makes sense. All right, so I guess we're just 5 minutes short of an hour, so we'll get to the high five section. So 5 questions, top 5 of each, and maybe there's a bit of questions leaning into each other at the end, but we'll start with top 5 books.
This was actually a good one. Scar Tissue is one of my favorite books. And I think I'm still trying to finish it, but that's one of those where I've taken it on a couple trips, and it's just such a good book. A really good book that I read, my wife right now actually, I think is reading, is Awareness. The author is Anthony DeMello. Just philosophical book about like self-awareness and awareness in general, and it's just a really good like self-discovery, I guess, type of book. And it's a small, like, it's not a really big read. Mastery, that one is a thicker book. Mastery, it's Robert Greene, but it's actually a really good book. That was probably one of my favorite books. It's just basically how to master, like, a layman's way to explain it is how to master something. So the different steps and components that you need to master whatever it is, podcasting, poker, fantasy, whatever, being a husband, whatever it is. It just teaches you how to actually get there, and it gives you awesome examples. Like, it's, one of those, I think that's a Tim Ferriss type of suggestion, actually, that I got from either Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan or one of those guys. The Chamber, I don't know why, but that book, John Grisham, I don't know if somebody gave me that book, or I don't know if it was for a school thing, but I read that a while ago, and I remember I really, really liked that book. So it's one I always kind of put on there. And one I reread recently that I really like is Moneyball. Michael Lewis. That's a good book as well.
It may have rapport with fantasy there.
Yeah, there you go.
And I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers memoir. So that's good. We'll talk more music later. But before that, top 5 movies.
Gotta go Rounders. Which way do I turn here? Rounders. My Rounders. See, there it is. There's my card. Can't really see it because that annoying lamp is there. But that's my when he's sitting at the table with the Russian. The King, it's a signed card by Matt Damon. So Rounders is definitely number 1. I love the movie Heat. That is, like, if you haven't seen the movie Heat, that is probably my most worn out DVD was Heat. Scarface, obviously classic. I love the movie Swingers. I don't know if you remember that movie with
Yeah, with Vince Vaughn.
Favreau. Yeah, Von Favreau. And I put Gladiator. I know it's cliche, but like, come on. Are you not entertained? That's just too good, man.
That answer has definitely come up before, so you're within good company on this show to say that.
All right, there you go. Good to know.
There you go. Yeah, it's well placed. Something that's always well placed, no matter what. Always a Sunday watching games. I guess in Canada could be Saturday night hockey. What's your top 5 game day foods?
Yeah, this is interesting. So I'm vegan, so I don't eat meat. Don't eat dairy, that whole thing. But these days, a lot of really good options in the vegan world. For us, I guess we're still minority. I don't know. But my wife makes a killer chili, like a really good vegetarian chili, like to the point where even her like Portuguese dad, who eats nothing but meat and potatoes, he'll even enjoy it. So that's definitely a must, like on Super Bowl Sunday or whatever. I'm the nacho guy of the family, so I make like the nacho platter with like the vegan cheese and load up the jalapenos and the olives on my side of the platter. IPA for sure is a must. Got to have one of these or a couple. And I think that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it.
Not much of a high five, more of a power trio.
Yeah, I guess you had 5. I put these things, actually they're called Packwees. What's his name? DHH guy. Oh my god. Travis. No, not Travis. Wow. I'm blanking.
Tyler
Guntner. Thank you. We were going back and forth once. I wish I had a bag around me, but they're kind of like a healthy version of Doritos, or at least I've convinced myself of that. But they're really good. So they're Paquis. That's how I think that's how it's spelled anyways. But yeah, okay. The purple bag, get the purple bag. They're pretty awesome. They're a little spicy, but they're good.
It's funny you're just talking about your wife being Portuguese. I'm Portuguese, and there
you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does sound like it. I know, especially for my grandfather, ingrained, food tastes are a bit stubborn, right? Like, it's really tough to convince them. My grandfather, for his entire life, never ate corn. I mean, grew up on a farm, lived on farm most of his life, and corn is for the animals, not for humans. So even though other people would be eating corn, even corn on the cob, no, completely refused. So to get, for your wife to, for it to be that good that her family members would eat it, even it goes against what they normally would eat, that's a good sign. So.
Oh yeah, it took her a while to even get them to try it.
Persistence is key, right? And just like in fantasy, you got to keep drafting all the time. Always be trading. Always be drafting.
Exactly. There you go. Nice.
All right. So 2 final high fives. And again, I believe they'll chain through together. Didn't check for sure. I kind of know how at least one of these answers is going to go. So top 5 artists or bands.
Yeah, see, this is where I kind of cheat. Like I threw in like I put 5 different lines, but some of them have like 4 or 5 names. So the first one's The Hip. They're just that's just my band. Obviously big Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder guy, Chris Cornell, Nirvana, like that whole kind of clan. Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Black Keys, I kind of grouped together. I don't know why. I just wanted to name both. I'm a big like hip hop, but like 90s, hip hop, like Dre, Eminem, Snoop, Biggie, like that whole deal. Jay-Z, of course. So I put them all on one line. And then just because, you speak French, right, Kyle? You French guy? Yeah. So do you know the band? This is someone, like, I just discovered these guys and I love them. And I know it's super dweeby, but they're called Kyle de Pirate. Have you heard of them?
Oh yeah. Kyle de Pirate. Yeah. I've heard of her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I can't get enough of that girl's voice. And so if anyone's looking for like some international flavor to play for their wife or girlfriend or something, Cal de Pirate is definitely a new favorite of mine.
And I think like I've heard some of her songs. She'll release English version and French version.
Yes.
So if you want the Englishized version
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it,
she sings
you can
both.
get that.
Sings both, but yeah, I mean, it's in French is
And I think she's got a big hand in the music itself, like playing keyboards, and it's not just the singing. So she's not just a singer and lyricist, but also a composer. And yeah, she's phenomenal.
yeah, yeah, crazy musician
Yeah.
all around. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Good songs. You mentioned hip hop. I'll throw one more French group out there. You ever heard of a group Quebecois called Kodiak?
I don't think so, but I'm
Okay.
definitely gonna check them out.
It's especially the first album is a lot of like combinations of hip hop and reggae, and now more last few albums more geared towards hip hop pop side of thing. But if he's a really good rapper.
I'll check that. Like just Kodia.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Kodiak,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I'll check
Yeah.
them out. Awesome. Nice.
Hey,
See.
we're sharing, not just the listeners, but with ourselves
Yeah.
too.
There you go.
But yeah. Okay, so you mentioned the Hip being number one. I know I've only seen them once live in person. Seen a few concerts and concert DVDs and things are there. But yeah, so the Tragically Hip. I guess for those that don't know, the Tragically Hip, a Canadian band, quite legendary. Been around since the like late '80s, really.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, unfortunately, lead singer Gord Downey passed away. Supposedly, though, right now, some new music is in the process of being released. So I don't know if you got that news recently. They just announced that maybe a week ago.
Yeah, they actually, because I think it was the Leaf game, the last Leaf game, they were playing some of it. They interviewed a couple of the guys, I think Baker and forget the other guy's name right now, but
Gord Langlois.
yeah, Gord Langlois, that's it. So I think they released it was stuff when they were on the Road Apples like tour or something like that. They were just a compilation of songs that I guess they kind of recorded during that tour. So I think they did release it. I haven't checked it out yet, but yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
Anyway, and so like I mean, their first album came out what 1990, 89, and it seemed like it was almost consistently every year or two an album, pretty much up until just maybe 5 years ago. So a group that constantly creating and a lot of tours, especially around Canada, but certainly in the States as well. So just especially in Canada, Tragic Hip's kind of viewed it as a great band. And certainly JD feels that himself. And I knew that about it before. That's why I made this final top
Nice.
top five Tragically Hip songs. So
Right.
and you could give a detailed enough explanation on all of them if you want. We got time.
Yeah, I mean, Locked in the Trunk of a Car has always been my favorite Hip song. Just that build up in it. I don't know if anyone knows the song. Like the build up in that song is just crazy for me. I just really like that song. The classic New Orleans is Sinking. I mean, that's that song. I think probably had a play in a lot of people falling in love with the band was that song. I know for me that was one of the songs that kind of sucked me in. Grace too is a favorite of mine. I'll never forget seeing them in Toronto, and they opened up with Grace too, and just that's one of those things, man. When you go to a concert and you have a really good experience, and it's like that song, like that was just one of the craziest openings. So that's one of my faves. Wheat Kings is corny and on everybody's list, but it was hard not to put it on here. And then 5, I just put there's just too many to choose from. Like I was trying to fit in a 5th song that I actually, and I'm like, I don't even to name that. Like I have a favorite Hip song, which is Locked in the Trunk of a Car, but there's so many. It's one of those things you just put on their songs and you shuffle them and you just grab a beer and sit by the campfire.
I mean, whether you have a favorite Hip song or not, the most important thing is there's no least favorite Hip song. Like there really is no weak song in their catalog at all.
They're one of those bands where you either like them or you don't, because as much as their songs are and their albums are very different, they have a sound. Like a lot. Some bands just have a sound, and if you're not into it, you're not into it. But in Canada, man, it's like a religion up here. Tragically Hip.
Yeah, practically is. I'd follow them more. But yeah, I think you're talking about New Orleans is Siki, right? And how the connection, because it seems like one of the few places where they did have more of an influence outside of Canada was in the New Orleans area. I know you already mentioned my favorite album by them, Road Apples. They actually recorded that album in New Orleans, and so.
Oh, did they really? See, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And I believe New Orleans, I think, was on the previous album, so that kind of gave them a notoriety, and it does seem kind of like they are a band for that Louisiana sound as well. Like they've got the bit of the country aspect to it, but enough of the rock aspect. And Gord, a pretty interesting fella, so they can be quite strange at times.
Oh, for sure. I was gonna say something and I forgot now. Brain fart. I got one brain fart per show, so there it is.
Saved it for the end. I don't know if you can save the best for last.
There you go.
But yeah, while we're at the end, I guess do you want to plug anything, JD, or just let people know anything about you before we head out?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you, Kyle. This was awesome, man. Just to get on, and I'm sure when you host a show, it's totally different than when you come on, and you don't have to worry about all the technical aspects and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice for you to shoulder the load through this. But no, man, I appreciate you having me on. It was nice to come on and even talk things non-fantasy related, because most of the time that's what we're talking when we're on the mic. So I appreciate that. Check out the Goat District on YouTube. We're really building something big there on the channel there. We've got a really nice team of high stakes players, guys that are right. We've got Theo, the OG Fantasy, who writes for the Breakout Finder. He's going to be doing a waiver wire show for us, or ranking show for us. He's basically part of the Goat District show now. He's on every week. We basically can never not invite him. And with these guys like Dan at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, Andrew, AMS Schellenberg, these guys are, like I said, they play in these high stake leagues, and they've got a lot of, they're friends with a lot of these guys that have won a lot of these big money leagues. So we have a lot of these guys coming on and sharing their secrets, and some of these guys don't really go on shows. So you kind of get exclusive with that. So stay tuned for that. And we've got John McGlynn does the commissioner evaluation. So he brings in a different guest every other week. They basically talk commissioner stuff, league settings. They break down a roster for Dynasty and kind of how they would, maneuver the league. So if you're into fantasy football, and we say it on the show, if you're into fantasy, you're into winning, you want to figure out how to make your teams better, whether it's Dynasty, best ball, tune into the Goat District. And that's pretty much it, man.
Again, and thank you, JD. It really is nothing at all for me to come in here and just talk with people and converse, and so I really enjoy that, and it really is no trouble at all. So again, thanks, Jeff. Thanks all the listeners, and at Going for Two here. Again, in the off season now, we're in the point where we got tons of shows. I mean, I'll be on the Dynasty Gambit on Thursday, which I am now co-hosting. So look for that every 2 Thursdays. It'll be, again, the same week that I record here on Press Coverage. But every Monday, of course, there's always a show, whether it's Press Coverage with myself or Gladys Louise Tyler. Next week, and then every 2 weeks after that, 2 Point Conversion. So there's always Jeff Lambert's, of course, the flagship Armchair Show on Wednesday. So again, tons of content almost daily throughout the week here in the off season at Going for Two. So check all that out at Going for Two Live on Twitter. Personally, myself, you can also follow me at Senra Says. And yeah, this is again Press Coverage, part of the Going for Two Live network. And JD, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. Appreciate it, man. This was a blast.
All right, and to all the listeners, goodbye. See you all in a couple weeks. John Lobb will be on for that episode. Yeah, I know
that'll be fun. John's a good time, man.
Yeah, I know. Jeff was really happy when I was able to snag him on, and that'll be June 7th. So 2 weeks from now. So yeah, that'll be next time. But again, this time it was JD from the Goat District. So thank you, JD.
Thanks, Kyle.
Bye, everyone.